Lily Harper's feet were already aching, and her shift had only started an hour ago. She adjusted her name tag and smoothed down her black uniform for the third time that evening. Tonight wasn't just any ordinary night at the Eye. Sterling Rose, the restaurant had closed, its doors to regular guests to host one of those fancy charity events where people paid $5,000 just to walk through the door. She had been working at the Sterling Rose for almost 2 years now. It wasn't her dream job, but it paid better than most places, and she desperately needed every cent. Between her tiny apartment rent and the mountain of medical bills that still arrived in her mailbox each month, she barely had enough left over for groceries. Her mother had passed away 14 months ago, but the debt from her cancer treatments felt like it would follow Lily forever. The restaurant looked stunning tonight. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above perfectly set tables with white linens and fresh roses at each setting. Lily could hear the soft jazz music playing in the background as wealthy guests in designer clothes and expensive jewelry began filling the dining room. She took a deep breath and reminded herself to smile no matter what. Her manager, Mr. Peterson, rushed past her with a stressed expression. Table 7 just arrived. They're VIPs. Very, very important. Make sure everything is absolutely perfect. He didn't wait for her response before hurrying away to greet more guests at the entrance. Lily grabbed her notepad and headed toward table 7. She recognized the man sitting at the head of the table immediately, Victor Ashford. His face had been on the cover of business magazines more times than she could count. He was one of those tech billionaires who seemed to buy and sell companies the way normal people bought groceries. At 45, he looked polished and powerful in his expensive suit, his dark hair graying slightly at the temples. 4 other people sat around the table with him, all dressed in clothes that probably cost more than Lily made in 6 months. They were laughing at something Victor had said as she approached with her best professional smile. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sterling Rose. My name is Lily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. She kept her voice warm and friendly, the way she'd been trained. Victor barely glanced at her. He was typing something on his phone, his fingers moving rapidly across the screen. The others at the table gave her polite nods, but nobody spoke. Lily waited for a moment, then continued. Our chef has prepared some wonderful specials this evening. We have a pan-seared sea bass with, can you even read? Victor's voice cut through her words like a knife. He still hadn't looked up from his phone. The table went quiet. Lily felt her stomach tighten. I'm sorry. The menu. Can you read it? Because I'm wondering if we need to get someone more qualified to explain it to us. He finally looked at her and his eyes were cold. Someone who actually understands fine dining. One of the women at the table let out an uncomfortable laugh. Another man cleared his throat and suddenly became very interested in his water glass. Lily felt heat rising to her cheeks, but she kept her smile in place. Of course, sir. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the menu. I don't have questions, Victor said, setting his phone down with a deliberate thud. I have concerns. When you pay premium prices for premium service, you expect premium staff, not... He waved his hand dismissively at her. Whatever this is. Her hands were starting to tremble, but Lily kept them steady by gripping her notepad tighter. I understand, sir. What can I get started for you this evening? You can start by standing up straight. And stop mumbling. Where did they find you, anyway? Some fast food place? Victor leaned back in his chair, a smug expression on his face. His companions shifted uncomfortably, but nobody defended her. Every instinct told Lily to walk away, to tell this man exactly what she thought of him, to throw down her notepad and leave. But she couldn't. She needed this job. She needed the paycheck that came every 2 weeks. She needed to pay her rent and chip away at those medical bills and maybe, just maybe, have enough left over to not live on instant noodles every single night. I apologize if I've offended you, sir. Let me take your drink orders and I'll give you a few more minutes with the menu. Her voice came out steadier than she felt inside. The rest of the table quietly ordered their drinks. Victor waited until everyone else had finished before speaking. I'll have the 1998 Chateau Margaux, and make sure it's properly decanted, though I'm not confident you know what that means. Of course, sir. I'll bring that right out. Lily turned and walked away, feeling Victor's eyes boring into her back. She could hear him saying something to the table, followed by laughter that made her skin crawl. In the service station, she leaned against the wall for just a moment, closing her eyes and taking deep breaths. Another waitress, Jennifer, touched her shoulder. "You okay? I saw what happened out there." "I'm fine," Lily lied. "Just another day in paradise." That guy's a real piece of work. Everyone knows Victor Ashford treats service staff like dirt. Last year at the Plaza Hotel, he supposedly made a busboy cry. "Great," Lily muttered, "and he's seated in my section for the entire night." She gathered the drinks and returned to table 7. The rest of the dinner service became a nightmare she wouldn't forget. Every single thing she did was wrong in Victor's eyes. The wine wasn't cold enough. Then it was too cold. The bread arrived too quickly. The salads took too long. She was standing too close to the table. Then she was too far away and not attentive enough. When she brought out their main courses, perfectly plated and steaming hot, Victor took one look at his steak and shook his head. "This is overcooked." "Take it back." Lily glanced at the steak. It looked perfect, cooked exactly to the medium rare he had ordered. "Sir, would you like me to have the chef prepare another one? I want you to learn how to do your job properly. This is pathetic. Does nobody here have standards anymore?" His voice was loud enough that nearby tables turned to look. She took the plate back to the kitchen. The chef looked at the steak and shrugged. "There's nothing wrong with it. But make him another one anyway. The customer is always right even when they're completely wrong." Lily brought out a second steak 15 minutes later. Victor cut into it, chewed slowly, and then pushed the plate away. "Still not right. But I suppose this is the best we can expect from a place like this." The other guests at his table had stopped trying to make conversation. They ate their meals quietly, clearly embarrassed by their host's behavior but unwilling to say anything. As the evening wore on, Lily felt smaller and smaller. Every trip to table 7 meant another comment, another criticism, another moment where Victor Ashford reminded her that she was beneath him. That she was nothing but a servant who couldn't do even the simplest tasks correctly. She was clearing their dessert plates when the worst moment came. Victor had ordered an espresso, and as Lily set it down on the table, his hand suddenly moved. The cup tipped over, sending hot coffee spilling across the pristine white tablecloth and splashing onto Victor's expensive suit jacket. He jumped up from his chair with a roar. "Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? Look what you've done." "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me—" Lily reached for a napkin. "Don't touch me." Victor stepped back like she was contagious. "You clumsy, incompetent fool. You just ruined a $12,000 suit." Mr. Peterson appeared out of nowhere, rushing to Victor's side with apologies streaming from his mouth. Other guests had stopped eating to watch the scene unfold. Several people had their phones out recording everything. Lily stood frozen, the empty cup still in her hand, knowing with absolute certainty that she hadn't bumped the table, but she also knew that nobody would believe her over a billionaire. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Lily could feel dozens of eyes on her as Victor Ashford stood there, dark coffee stains spreading across his designer suit jacket. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. "I am so sorry, sir," Mr. Peterson kept saying, his face red with panic. "Please let us take care of the cleaning costs. We'll cover everything. I cannot apologize enough." Victor brushed at his jacket with sharp, angry movements. "Cleaning costs? This suit is ruined. Completely ruined. And you're worried about cleaning costs?" He turned his cold stare on Lily, who stood there holding the empty coffee cup, her hands shaking. "She did this deliberately. I saw her bump the table." "No, I didn't," Lily said quietly. The words came out before she could stop them. "I didn't touch the table." "Are you calling me a liar?" Victor's voice rose even louder. "On top of your complete incompetence, you're going to stand there and contradict me?" Mr. Peterson grabbed Lily's arm, his fingers digging in harder than necessary. "Lily, go to the back, now, I'll handle this." "But I didn't." "Go, now." His tone left no room for argument. Lily set down the cup on a nearby server station and walked toward the kitchen, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. Behind her, she could hear Mr. Peterson's voice, still apologizing, still promising to make everything right. The other staff members avoided her eyes as she passed them, and she knew what they were thinking. She was going to get fired, and nobody wanted to be associated with someone on their way out. In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall and tried to breathe normally. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "Not here, not now." She'd cried enough when her mother died, when the final medical bills arrived, when she'd had to sell everything she owned just to stay afloat. She wouldn't cry over some cruel billionaire who got his kicks from making people feel small. Jennifer appeared beside her. Hey, that was messed up. Everyone saw him move his hand toward that cup. He did it on purpose. Doesn't matter what really happened, Lily said, her voice hollow. It only matters what someone like him says happened. 5 minutes later, Mr. Peterson pushed through the kitchen doors. His expression told Lily everything she needed to know before he even opened his mouth. We need to talk. My office. Now. She followed him down the narrow hallway to his cramped office at the back of the building. He closed the door and sat down heavily in his chair, rubbing his temples like he had a massive headache. Lily, you're a good worker. You really are. But Mr. Ashford is one of our most important clients. He hosts events here regularly, and he's donated huge amounts to the charities we work with. I can't afford to lose his business, so you're firing me. It wasn't a question, I don't have a choice. He's demanding it. He says he'll blast us on social media, tell everyone we hire incompetent staff, ruin our reputation. You know how these things work. One bad review from someone like him could destroy us. Lily felt numb. She'd known this was coming, but hearing the words out loud made it real. I need this job, Mr. Peterson. I have bills, I have rent. I've never had a single complaint before tonight. I know. And I'm sorry. I really am. But my hands are tied. He pulled out an envelope from his desk drawer. Here's your pay for this week, plus a little extra. It's the best I can do. She took the envelope without looking at it. That's it? 2 years of good work and I'm just gone because some rich guy decided to make me his entertainment for the evening? Mr. Peterson wouldn't meet her eyes. Clean out your locker and go home. I'm sorry, Lily, I really am. She left his office in a daze. In the staff room, she mechanically opened her locker and pulled out her jacket and purse. Her hands moved on autopilot while her brain tried to process what had just happened. No job, no income. How was she going to pay rent next month? How was she going to eat? The medical bills alone were crushing her, and now she had nothing coming in to even make the minimum payments. As she headed toward the back exit, she heard raised voices coming from the dining room. Curiosity and a strange sense of detachment made her pause by the door to peek through the small window. Victor was standing again, his phone held high, addressing the room like he was giving a speech. This is exactly what's wrong with service these days. No standards, no accountability. I'm going to make sure everyone knows about this incompetent staff and their complete lack of professionalism. Some of the guests nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. That's how it always worked, Lily thought bitterly. The rich protected their own and everyone else just got crushed beneath them. Then the event coordinator rushed over to Victor's table looking frazzled. Mr. Ashford, I apologize for interrupting, but we have a small situation. Our pianist for this evening just called. He's stuck in terrible traffic on the bridge. He won't make it for at least another hour and a half, possibly 2. Victor waved his hand dismissively. So get another one. You must have backup entertainment. On such short notice, sir, it's nearly impossible. Everyone who plays at this level is already booked for Saturday night events. Then what am I paying for? Victor looked around the room. This is supposed to be a high-class charity gala and we don't even have music? What a disaster. First incompetent staff, now no entertainment. The coordinator looked like she might burst into tears. I'm so sorry. We're doing everything we can. Lily should have left. She should have walked out that back door and gone home to her tiny apartment to figure out how she was going to survive. But something made her stay. Watching through that window, seeing Victor continue to terrorize everyone around him just because he could. An elderly woman stood up from a table near the front. Lily recognized her immediately. Mrs. Victoria Chen. She was famous in the city for her charity work and her support of the arts. She'd donated millions to museums and theaters and concert halls. She moved slowly but with unmistakable dignity as she walked directly toward the event coordinator. Excuse me, dear, Mrs. Chen said in a clear, carrying voice. I couldn't help but overhear your predicament about the pianist. Yes, Mrs. Chen, we're terribly sorry for the inconvenience. The older woman smiled. No need to apologize, but I believe I may have a solution. She turned and looked directly at the kitchen door where Lily stood frozen. That young woman who was serving earlier. The one this gentleman was so cruel to. I know her. Lily's breath caught in her throat. How could Mrs. Chen possibly know her? I never forget a face, Mrs. Chen continued, walking toward the kitchen door. Especially not the face of someone as talented as Miss Lily Harper. Mr. Peterson appeared from somewhere, looking confused. Mrs. Chen, I'm afraid Lily is no longer working this evening. Bring her out here. Please. It wasn't a request. Mrs. Chen might have been 80 years old, but her voice carried absolute authority. After a moment's hesitation, Mr. Peterson opened the kitchen door and gestured for Lily to come out. She stepped into the dining room, feeling exposed and confused, with every eye in the place now watching her. Mrs. Chen approached her with a warm smile. My dear, you probably don't remember me. It was 7 years ago. You were only 21, but I was on the judging panel at the International Young Musicians Competition. You played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 in the finals. I've never forgotten it. You didn't win first place, but you should have. Your performance was breathtaking. Lily felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. That competition felt like it belonged to a different lifetime, to a different person. Mrs. Chen, that was a long time ago. Talent like yours doesn't just disappear, Mrs. Chen said gently. She turned to address the room. We need a pianist, and we have one of the finest young talents I've ever heard standing right here. Victor let out a sharp laugh. Oh, this is rich. The waitress is secretly a concert pianist? What's next? Is the busboy actually a brain surgeon? Mrs. Chen's expression turned cold as she looked at Victor. Mr. Ashford, I've sat on more arts boards and judged more competitions than you've made business deals. When I tell you this young woman is exceptionally talented, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Prove it then, Victor said, spreading his arms wide with a smirk. Let's see if this magical waitress can actually play, or if this is just another attempt to make me look like the bad guy. The room fell completely silent. Everyone was staring at Lily now, waiting to see what would happen next. Her heart raced. She hadn't played in front of people in 7 years. She'd sold her piano. She'd given up that entire life. Her fingers hadn't touched ivory keys in so long. But as she looked at Victor's smug, confident face, something stirred inside her. Something that had been buried under grief and debt and survival for too long. All right, she heard herself say. I'll play. Lily's words hung in the air for a moment. I'll play. She couldn't quite believe she'd said them out loud. Her pulse was racing and her palms were already sweating. 7 years. It had been 7 years since she'd performed in front of anyone. Mrs. Chen's face lit up with a gentle smile. Wonderful. The piano is right there, dear. She gestured toward the magnificent Steinway grand piano that sat on a raised platform in the center of the restaurant. Under the soft lighting, it looked both beautiful and terrifying. Victor leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed, that same smug expression plastered across his face. This should be entertaining. I'm sure we're all eager to see this world-class talent. His tone dripped with sarcasm, and a few people at his table chuckled nervously. Lily untied her server's apron with trembling fingers and set it on a nearby chair. She smoothed down her simple black uniform, suddenly very aware that she was about to perform in front of New York's wealthiest people while dressed like staff. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore no jewelry except for the small silver cross her mother had given her years ago. The walk to the piano felt like the longest walk of her life. Every eye in the restaurant followed her. Some faces showed curiosity, others skepticism, and a few looked sympathetic, like they were already preparing to witness her humiliation. She could hear whispered conversations and the subtle sounds of people pulling out their phones. When she reached the piano bench, she stood there for a moment, just looking at the instrument. It was beautiful. The black lacquer finish gleamed under the lights, and she could see her own reflection in its polished surface. Slowly, carefully, she sat down and adjusted the bench to the right height. Her hands hovered over the keys, not quite touching them yet. They were shaking. She pressed her palms against her thighs, trying to steady them, trying to calm the panic that was rising in her chest. What was she thinking? She hadn't practiced in years. She'd sold her own piano to pay for her mother's medication. The most music she'd made lately was humming along to the radio while she cleaned her apartment. Any time now, Victor called out. Or are we waiting for you to remember how a piano works? Something about his voice, so cruel and so certain of her failure, made something click inside Lily. She lifted her hands and placed them gently on the keys. The ivory felt cool and smooth under her fingertips. And suddenly she was 20 years old again, before the medical bills. before her mother got sick, before everything fell apart, when music was her entire world, and the piano was where she made sense of everything. She closed her eyes and took one deep breath. Then she began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor filled the restaurant. Soft, delicate, melancholic. Her fingers found their way across the keys like they'd been waiting for this moment, like they'd been asleep and had finally woken up. The muscle memory was still there, buried but not gone. The room fell absolutely silent. Even the kitchen staff had stopped working to listen. The soft, haunting melody wrapped around everyone present, drawing them in. Lily forgot about Victor. She forgot about being fired. She forgot about the unpaid bills and the empty refrigerator at home. There was only the music. Her fingers moved faster now, more confident. The piece grew more complex, more emotional. She poured everything into it. All the grief she'd carried since her mother died. All the frustration of working herself to exhaustion just to survive. All the anger at people like Victor who looked at someone like her and saw nothing but a servant, someone beneath them, someone whose dreams and talents didn't matter. The notes cascaded from the piano like water, sometimes gentle as rain, sometimes powerful as a waterfall. Her hands flew across the keys, executing runs and arpeggios that most pianists spent years perfecting. This was the piece she'd played at that competition 7 years ago, the one Mrs. Chen remembered. Back then she'd played it for the judges. Tonight she was playing it for herself. She could feel tears on her cheeks, but she didn't stop. The music swelled, filling every corner of the restaurant, reaching into places in people's hearts they'd forgotten existed. Some pieces of classical music are just pretty sounds, but some pieces tell stories, convey emotions that words can't capture. This was one of those pieces, and Lily was playing it like her life depended on it. As the nocturne drew to a close, she transitioned seamlessly into something different. Something bolder, more technically challenging. Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. It was a showpiece, the kind of thing that made audiences gasp when performed well. Her fingers attacked the keys now with precision and power, racing through impossibly fast passages that would make most pianists' hands cramp up. She opened her eyes and saw the blur of her own hands moving across the keyboard. The piano sang and roared under her touch. This piece was fire where the Chopin had been water. It was defiant and bold and refused to be ignored. It was everything she'd wanted to say to Victor but couldn't put into words. The restaurant staff stood frozen in doorways, trays forgotten in their hands. Guests at the tables sat motionless, their dinner completely forgotten. Mrs. Chen had tears streaming down her face, a hand pressed to her heart. Even Victor's table had gone completely still, though Lily didn't look at them. She didn't need to see his reaction. This performance wasn't for him anymore. Her hands ached. Her back hurt from the tension. But she kept playing, pushing herself through the most difficult passages, not allowing herself any mistakes. The final section of the Rhapsody built and built, getting faster and more intense until it exploded in a series of dramatic chords that seemed to shake the very air. When she struck the final chord, the sound rang out and slowly faded into absolute silence. Lily's hands remained on the keys, her chest heaving from the exertion. She could feel her heart pounding. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the restaurant erupted. People jumped to their feet, applauding wildly. The sound was thunderous, overwhelming. Some people were shouting, "Brava!" Others were wiping tears from their eyes. Mrs. Chen stood and clapped with such genuine joy on her face that it made Lily want to cry all over again. Jennifer and the other staff members were applauding too. Huge smiles on their faces. Even Mr. Peterson looked stunned, his mouth hanging open slightly. Lily slowly stood from the piano bench on shaky legs. She felt dizzy, like she'd just run a marathon. The applause continued, wave after wave of it washing over her. She looked toward Victor's table. Most of the people there were standing and clapping along with everyone else. But Victor himself sat frozen in his chair. The smug expression was completely gone. His face had gone pale, and he stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Like he'd just realized that the person he'd been tormenting all evening was an actual human being with depth and talent and a story he knew nothing about. His companions at the table were clapping enthusiastically, leaving him sitting alone. One woman at his table actually turned her back on him as she applauded Lily. A man pulled out his phone and was clearly recording the moment, capturing everything, including Victor's shocked expression in the background. Mrs. Chen made her way through the crowd and embraced Lily warmly. "My dear, that was magnificent. Even better than I remembered. You've grown as an artist. The emotion, the technical skill, the passion, that was a masterclass in performance." "Thank you," Lily managed to say, her voice hoarse. "I don't know what came over me. I haven't played like that in so long." "Real talent never truly leaves," Mrs. Chen said, holding both of Lily's hands in hers. "It was just waiting for the right moment to remind you of who you really are." Other guests approached, wanting to congratulate her, asking questions. Where had she trained? Would she be performing anywhere else soon? Did she have recordings? The attention was overwhelming after years of being invisible, of being just another face in a uniform serving food. Through the crowd, Lily caught one more glimpse of Victor. He was standing now, but nobody at his table was paying attention to him anymore. He stood alone in a room full of people, and for perhaps the first time in his life, he looked small. He looked like a man who just realized he'd made a terrible mistake but had no idea how to fix it. The event coordinator rushed over, her earlier stress replaced with excitement. "Miss Harper, would you be willing to play a few more pieces? I know this isn't what you expected tonight, but everyone would be thrilled to hear more." Lily looked back at the piano, at the instrument that had once been her whole world, and then became something she couldn't afford to think about. Her hands still tingled from playing. Her heart still raced, and for the first time in 7 years, she felt like herself again. "Yes," she said with a genuine smile, "I'd love to play more." Lily played 3 more pieces that night. Each one felt like peeling back another layer of the armor she'd built around herself over the past 7 years. By the time she finished the final piece, a beautiful rendition of Debussy's Clair de Lune, there wasn't a dry eye in the restaurant. People didn't just clap anymore. They stood, they cheered, they refused to let her leave the piano without multiple bows. What Lily didn't know, what she couldn't have known in that moment, was that at least 30 people had recorded her performance on their phones, and within minutes of her final note, those videos were already being uploaded to social media. By the time she finally left the piano for the last time that night, her legs wobbling from exhaustion and adrenaline, the first video had already gotten 5,000 views. The caption read, "Billionaire humiliates waitress at charity gala. Then she sits at the piano and does this." Mrs. Chen took Lily aside while guests continued to mill around, everyone wanting to talk to her, to shake her hand, to tell her how moved they were. "My dear, what happened to you? 7 years ago you were on the path to a remarkable career. Everyone at that competition was talking about you." Lily felt the familiar weight settle back onto her shoulders. "My mom got sick, cancer. The treatments were expensive and insurance didn't cover everything. Actually, it barely covered anything. I had to quit school, sell my piano, take whatever jobs I could find." She paused, her throat tight. "She died last year, but the bills didn't stop coming." Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. No young person should have to sacrifice their dreams like that." She pulled a business card from her elegant purse. "This is my personal number. Call me tomorrow. I want to help, and I know several people who will want to help too. Your talent deserves to be shared with the world, not hidden away because of circumstance, and I don't know what to say. Thank you. Really, thank you." Lily took the card with trembling hands. Across the room, Victor had finally moved. He was gathering his things, clearly preparing to leave. His companions from dinner had already dispersed, joining other groups, leaving him to settle the bill alone. Mr. Peterson hovered nearby, probably hoping Victor wouldn't make another scene on his way out. As Victor headed toward the exit, he had to walk past where Lily stood with Mrs. Chen. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Lily saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Not quite an apology, but definitely discomfort. Maybe even shame. He opened his mouth like he might say something, then closed it again and looked away, hurrying toward the door. Jennifer rushed over the moment he was gone. "Lily, oh my God, you have to see this. You're everywhere." She held up her phone, scrolling frantically through video after video. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Everyone's sharing the videos. "Look at the comments." Lily peered at the screen. The views were climbing impossibly fast. 10,000. 20,000. The comments were flooding in faster than she could read them. This made me cry. Who is she? Someone sign her to a record label. The way that billionaire's face fell when she started playing is everything. This is the best revenge story I've ever seen. Revenge? Lily murmured. I wasn't trying to get revenge. I just wanted to play. Well, you got it anyway, Jennifer said with a grin. Look, they're already talking about Victor too. People are digging up his name, his company. This is not going to be good for him. By midnight, when Lily finally made it home to her small apartment, the main video had 3 million views. She sat on her worn couch, still in her uniform, scrolling through her phone in disbelief. Major news sites had picked up the story. Waitress's hidden talent. Stunts charity gala. From service to standing. Ovation. The piano performance. Everyone's talking about. Billionaires. Cruel treatment backfires. Spectacularly. Her phone started ringing. Unknown numbers over and over. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her email and found her inbox flooded with messages. Concert venues asking if she'd perform. A recording studio in Los Angeles wanting to discuss a potential album. 3 different talent agents offering representation. A morning show requesting an interview. The messages kept coming, so many that her phone couldn't keep up. She set the phone down and just breathed. This morning she'd woken up worried about making rent. Tonight the world had turned upside down. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so she did both. Sitting alone in her apartment while millions of strangers watched her play piano on their screens. The next morning, Lily woke up to discover the story had exploded even further. The main video now had 15 million views. But more importantly, people had started digging into Victor's background. News articles from previous years surfaced. Stories from other staff members he'd mistreated at various establishments. A pattern of behavior that painted him as exactly what he was. A wealthy bully who used his money to hurt people without consequences. His company's stock had dropped 3% overnight. That might not sound like much, but for a company his size it meant hundreds of millions of dollars in lost value. Business partners were distancing themselves. The charity that hosted last night's gala released a statement saying they would not be accepting any future donations from Victor and were returning his contribution from the event. Lily's phone rang again. This time she recognized the number from the business card Mrs. Chen had given her. She answered. Good morning, dear. I hope I'm not calling too early. Mrs. Chen's warm voice came through. I've been fielding calls all morning from people who saw the videos and want to help. The New York Philharmonic wants to discuss a possible guest appearance. The Manhattan School of Music wants to offer you a full scholarship to complete your studies, and I have at least a dozen donors who want to contribute to a fund to clear your mother's medical debts. Lily couldn't speak. She sat on her couch with tears streaming down her face, unable to form words. Lily, are you there? I'm here. I can't believe this is real. Yesterday I lost my job. Today you're telling me that my entire life might be different. Your talent made it real, dear. All you did was show the world who you truly are. The rest is just the world responding appropriately. Mrs. Chen paused. There's something else. Victor Ashford's board of directors called an emergency meeting this morning. Several major investors are demanding he step down from leadership positions. The public relations disaster is too severe. His cruelty wasn't just captured on video. It's become a symbol of everything people hate about wealth without character. I never meant for that to happen, Lily said quietly. You didn't do anything except defend your dignity through your art. He did this to himself. Actions have consequences even for billionaires. People are tired of watching wealthy individuals treat service workers like they're invisible or worthless. Your story resonated because everyone has either experienced that treatment or witnessed it. Mrs. Chen's voice became firmer. Don't you dare feel guilty for his consequences. He earned every bit of what's happening to him. The doorbell rang. Lily went to answer it and found a delivery person with an enormous bouquet of flowers. Then another delivery person appeared with another bouquet. Then another. By noon, her tiny apartment looked like a flower shop. Cards from musicians she admired, from venues, from people she'd never heard of telling her how much her performance had moved them. Jennifer stopped by in the afternoon with Chinese takeout and an update. Mr. Peterson wants you to know you're welcome back at the Sterling Rose. Actually, he's begging you to come back. Apparently, the restaurant is fully booked for the next 2 months with people hoping to see you. He's offering triple your previous pay and promising you'll only play piano. No serving. Lily laughed, though it came out a bit hysterical. Yesterday he fired me. Today he wants me to come back? That's not even the best part. Guess who called the restaurant this morning trying to make a reservation? Victor. They told him they're fully booked for the foreseeable future and would be unable to accommodate him. Jennifer grinned. The look on Peterson's face when he told me about rejecting Victor's reservation? Priceless. That evening, Lily sat at her laptop and created a simple video message. She thanked everyone for their support, expressed her gratitude for the opportunities coming her way, and said something she'd been thinking about all day. I want to set up a fund to help other young artists who have to give up their dreams because of medical debt or family emergencies. Nobody should have to choose between taking care of their loved ones and pursuing their passion. If my story can help change that for even one person, then something good will have come from all of this. She uploaded the video, and within an hour, donations started pouring in. Small amounts from regular people who'd been moved by her story. Larger amounts from wealthy individuals who suddenly wanted to be associated with something positive. The fund hit $100,000 by midnight. Lily's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart skipped when she read it. It was from Victor. I know an apology isn't enough, but I'm sorry. Watching those videos, seeing myself through others' eyes has forced me to face who I've become. I'm making a donation to your fund. Not for publicity or forgiveness, because it's the least I can do. You have more grace in your little finger than I've had in my entire life. She stared at the message for a long time. She didn't respond. Maybe she would someday, maybe she wouldn't. But she saved it because it confirmed something important. She hadn't destroyed him. He was still there, still wealthy, still powerful. But maybe, just maybe, he'd learned something about treating people with basic human dignity. As she finally got ready for bed, Lily looked at the business card Mrs. Chen had given her, at the emails still flooding in, at the flower-filled apartment that smelled like a garden. Her life had changed in a single night because she'd refused to let someone make her feel small. Because she'd remembered who she was beneath the uniform and the exhaustion and the debt. Tomorrow she'd start returning calls. She'd begin rebuilding the career she'd set aside. She'd play piano again, not in stolen moments, but as the center of her life. But tonight she let herself simply feel grateful. Grateful for Mrs. Chen's recognition. Grateful for the support of strangers. And grateful that she'd had the courage to sit at that piano when everything inside her had screamed to run away. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just being brave enough to remind the world who you really are. 3 months had passed since that night at the Sterling Rose, and Lily still sometimes woke up thinking it had all been a dream. But then she'd open her eyes and see the sunlight streaming through the windows of her new apartment. Not huge, but clean and bright with actual furniture that didn't come from thrift stores. And in the corner, taking up a significant portion of the living room, sat a beautiful upright piano. She'd cried the day it was delivered. Mrs. Chen had insisted on buying it for her, refusing to take no for an answer. Every artist needs their instrument, she'd said simply. Lily played it every single day, usually for hours, making up for all the lost time. The medical bills were gone, completely paid off. The fund that strangers had contributed to had covered every last cent, and there was still money left over that she'd put toward helping other young artists facing similar situations. She'd partnered with Mrs. Chen to create a foundation that provided emergency funds for artists dealing with family medical crises. They'd already helped 12 people in just 3 months. This morning was special, though. Today was her debut performance at Carnegie Hall. Not a full solo concert, but a guest appearance with the New York Philharmonic for their Emerging Artists Showcase. Still, it was Carnegie Hall, the same stage where legends had performed, where she'd once dreamed of playing when she was a teenager, before life had other plans. Jennifer had taken the morning off from the Sterling Rose to help her get ready. She sat on Lily's couch, scrolling through her phone while Lily tried on her concert dress for the 3rd time. It was simple but elegant, deep blue with a fitted bodice. Mrs. Chen had taken her shopping, insisting that she needed something that made her feel confident. "Have you seen the ticket prices on the resale sites?" Jennifer asked, looking up from her phone. "People are paying 3 times the face value just to see you perform. You're like a celebrity now." "That's ridiculous," Lily said, smoothing down the dress. "I'm just a pianist. You're not just anything. You're the waitress who became a piano sensation overnight. People love your story. They love that you're real, that you struggled, that you didn't give up even when life knocked you down." Jennifer set her phone aside. You represent something to them. Hope, maybe. The idea that talent and hard work still matter. That people like us can make it even when everything seems impossible. Lily sat down next to her friend. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life now. 3 months ago, I was worried about whether I could afford groceries. Now I'm playing Carnegie Hall. You deserve it, Jennifer said firmly. Every bit of it. And not just because of that night at the restaurant. Because you're genuinely talented and you've worked hard your entire life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. The car will be there in an hour. Remember to breathe. You're going to be magnificent. Lily smiled and texted back a thank you with a heart emoji. Mrs. Chen had become more than a mentor. She'd become like family, filling a gap that had been empty since her mother passed away. They had dinner together at least once a week, and Mrs. Chen never missed an opportunity to give advice, tell stories about the music world, or simply listen when Lily needed to talk. The foundation they'd started together was growing faster than either of them had anticipated. Major donors were coming forward, moved by Lily's story and wanting to contribute. They'd received applications from artists all over the country who needed help. Musicians, painters, dancers, writers, all talented people who'd been forced to set aside their dreams because of circumstances beyond their control. As Lily finished getting ready, she thought about Victor. She'd heard through various sources that things hadn't gone well for him after that night. His board had indeed forced him to step down as CEO of his company. He'd lost several major contracts. His reputation in business circles had taken a massive hit. People didn't want to be associated with someone who'd become a symbol of wealthy cruelty. He'd made that donation to her foundation as promised. A substantial one. 6 figures. It came with no press release, no attempt to use it for good publicity. Just a quiet donation and a short note that said, "Thank you for teaching me what I should have learned a long time ago." Lily still hadn't responded to his original text message. She wasn't sure she ever would. Forgiveness was complicated, and she was still working through her feelings about that whole night. But she didn't hate him. Mostly she pitied him. He'd had everything: money, power, success, and he'd been miserable enough to find entertainment in hurting others. That was its own kind of poverty. The car arrived exactly on time. As Lily rode to Carnegie Hall, she watched the city pass by outside the window. New York looked different now than it had 3 months ago. She'd walked these streets feeling invisible. Just another struggling person trying to survive. Now she looked at the same buildings, the same crowds, and felt connected to it all in a new way. At Carnegie Hall, the backstage area buzzed with activity. Stagehands rushed around making final preparations. Other musicians warmed up in practice rooms. The conductor, a distinguished older gentleman named Richard, found her immediately. "Ah, there you are. How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Lily admitted with a nervous laugh. "Good, that means you care. The day you stop being nervous before a performance is the day you should quit." He smiled kindly. "You're going to do beautifully. I've heard your recordings. You have a gift." Mrs. Chen arrived with a small group of friends all dressed elegantly for the occasion. She hugged Lily tightly. "Your mother would be so proud of you. I wish she could be here to see this." "She is here," Lily said, touching the silver cross around her neck. In a way. The theater was filling up. Lily peeked through the curtain and saw the audience taking their seats. 2,000 people, all there for the music and some specifically there to see her. In the front row, she spotted Jennifer, who'd somehow scored an incredible seat. She was waving enthusiastically. The house lights dimmed. The orchestra took their positions. Lily waited in the wings, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. This was it, the moment she'd dreamed of as a child, given up on as an adult and somehow found her way back to. Richard conducted the orchestra through the opening pieces. Then it was time. He turned and gestured for Lily to join him on stage. She walked out into the lights, into the sound of applause, and sat at the beautiful grand piano center stage. The audience quieted. 2,000 people holding their breath. Lily placed her hands on the keys and felt that same sense of coming home that she'd felt at the Sterling Rose. This was where she belonged. This was who she was. She began to play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, the same piece she'd performed at that competition 7 years ago, the piece Mrs. Chen had never forgotten. But this time she played it differently. Before, she'd played it as a young prodigy trying to prove herself. Now she played it as someone who'd lost everything and found herself again. Every note carried the weight of those 7 years. The grief, the struggle, the small victories, the moment of standing up for herself, and the unexpected grace that had followed. The orchestra swelled around her, supporting her, lifting her. Her fingers flew across the keys with confidence and precision. She wasn't nervous anymore. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. When the final notes faded, there was a brief moment of absolute silence. Then the audience exploded. They leaped to their feet, applauding, cheering, some people openly crying. The ovation went on and on. Lily stood and bowed, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the moment. She'd started that evening 3 months ago as a waitress being humiliated by a billionaire. She'd ended it by reminding the world who she really was. And now, standing on the stage at Carnegie Hall, she understood something profound. Victor hadn't given her this moment. He hadn't made this possible. Her own courage had done that. Her refusal to let someone else's cruelty define her worth. Later that night, back in her apartment, Lily sat at her piano and played for no one but herself. Quiet pieces, gentle pieces, pieces that made her think of her mother. The headlines would call tonight a triumph. Social media would buzz with clips of her performance. Her career was officially launched. But the real victory had happened 3 months ago when she'd chosen to sit at that piano despite her fear. When she'd decided that being true to herself mattered more than staying small and safe. That was the moment everything changed. Tonight was just the beginning of what came after. She pulled out her phone and finally, after 3 months, replied to Victor's message. She kept it simple. I hope you're learning to be kinder. That's all any of us can do. Learn and grow and treat people better. Good luck. She hit send and set the phone aside. Then she went back to her piano and played until the early morning light crept through her windows, filling her new apartment with golden sunshine and the promise of all the music still to come.